Initially, I was stoked to see Don't Worry, Darling, as I'm enamored with Florence Pugh and thought the rest of the cast looked pretty good as well. I was especially excited to see Chris Pine as a villain, a character he rarely plays, but often excels at. I also was looking forward to see what Olivia Wilde had up her sleeve as a director, since she's rumored to be taking on a MCU project sometime in the future. But the glut of horror films released in August kept me from seeing it, and the controversies that arose between the making of the film and the film's premiere soured my interest. Still, Don't Worry, Darling premiered on HBO Max recently, so I ended up checking it out, and better late than never, here's my review. Welcome back to ML Miller Frights. I'm ML Miller. Before we begin, please do me a favor and punch that like button down below. Share this video with all of your social media addicted pals. Click subscribe to this channel and ring that bell for notifications. Don't Worry, Darling is new streaming on HBO Plus. It's directed by Olivia Wilde and written by Katie Silberman from a story by Carey Van Dyke and Shane Van Dyke. Alice, played by Florence Pugh, is living a glamorous existence as the housewife of a successful businessman, Jack, played by Harry Styles, in the idyllic 50s community known as Victory. She cooks and cleans all day, prepares her husband's meals, and still has the energy for some hanky-panky after her hubby comes home from work. But an interaction with a neighbor causes Alice to question her entire existence, leading her to the very edge of her community, a place where her husband works and where she, as a woman in the community of Victory, is not meant to go. There's a whole lot of good in Don't Worry, Darling, and I think that's the main problem with it. The film has tons of potential, but it seems almost too full. Story-wise, the film borrows from a whole lot of other movies: The Stepford Wives, The Truman Show, the Suspiria remake, Pleasantville, and even Get Out are just a few films that Don't Worry, Darling doesn't outright lift from, but it comes pretty damn near close to doing so. There are scenes such as the ballet practice scene that feels almost shot for shot from Luca Guadagnino's Suspiria. There's the frantic car chase with the world seemingly moving against her that feels ripped straight from The Truman Show. These scenes weren't badly made, just distractingly taken from another, more original film. On top of that, the film starts off wonderfully subtle with its comments on the idealized version of gender roles in an even more idealized time in American history, but eventually loses all subtlety and beats you in the head with the message by the final act. Yes, it might be interesting seeing that nubby little wonder Flo Pugh in the lead. It just doesn't feel original, using the story of the oppression of women and how those roles made universal in the 50s spawned an entire generation of women being mistreated and taken advantage of by men. The film touches upon the suppression of dreams and aspirations, literally depicting the world closing in on Pugh's Alice in claustrophobic dreams and nightmarish hallucinations. There's also an argument for the similarities between the mentality of men and women in the 50s and how little has changed in modern times, as both the males and females fit into these roles almost blissfully ignorant that there is something more to life up until a certain point in the story. But while there is an interesting modern twist to the story, once you're finished with Don't Worry, Darling, you're going to swear you've seen this film before because these themes are far from new. Wilde does offer some interesting scenes of nightmare and horror. The aforementioned dream sequences Alice experiences are chilling, filled with zombies dancing in synchronicity and flashes of a life outside of Victory on the edges of her mind. There's a sequence featuring Harry Styles where he is made to dance like a puppet on stage that was palpably harrowing, but I think lacked some close-ups to show just how manipulated Styles' Jack really is. These scenes do lighten the mood and make you care for these pretty people in peril all the more. I did like the subtle menace of the cookie-cutter lives the residents of Victory are living in, reflecting a dreamlike existence where life outside of the prepackaged form is looked down upon and, worse yet, never considered. These themes are universally terrifying, and Wilde captures it all capably. The cast is stellar from top to bottom. Florence Pugh's rise to stardom cannot be impeded even by a film bombing. Most of the time, she is the most charismatic, personable, and coolest person in the room whenever she is on screen, and the actress seems like she's doing so effortlessly, unafraid to take challenging emotional and physical roles. While her overwrought emotions were pushed to an almost comical level in Midsummer, she was the best part in that film, and in Don't Worry Darling, she goes through another wringer of emotions as she transforms from happy housewife to paranoid outcast. She's just instantly relatable. So when she smiles, I smile. When she cries in horror, so do I. She's just that kind of sensational actress. Harry Styles is perfectly cast as the Ken doll of this story. He seems to lack basic humanity, but exudes charm that almost covers it all up. That's basically the role his Jack plays, and he does it well. Still, there's a vacancy to his persona that didn't win me over. Chris Pine is wonderfully devious as Frank, the charismatic leader of the community, while the standoff between Alice and Frank, all taking place at a seemingly friendly dinner, didn't really live up to build-up expectations. I think Pine is best when he is allowed to be bad. Here he's somewhat one-note, but I'd love to see him as a villain again in a future film. While Olivia Wilde is in a smaller role, most likely due to the fact that she was directing this whole damn thing, she still offers up a strong role as Alice's best bud, Bunny, who has a very tragic and chilling backstory of her own. And it was great to see comedian Nick Kroll in a mostly serious role, showing that he's more than just a goof. Timothy Simons also has a strong presence as the mysterious doctor of the community, more than eager to hand out pills that he just so happens to be carrying around in his briefcase for those who feel a little under the weather and maybe a little paranoid. Acting-wise, you'll find no complaints from me about the entire cast of Don't Worry, Darling. One thing Don't Worry, Darling excels at is in its musical score, especially during the scenes of tension and suspense. The score is punctuated and percussed by breaths, gasps, and sighs, mimicking the breathing of Alice as she encounters strange chips in Victory's facade. I do feel Wilde relied too heavily on denoting every new scene with a popular 50s song. This scene transition was made fashionable by Scorsese, but at least he used it with a little restraint. Wilde switches scenes way too quickly, leaving very little space between new musical scene transitions and making it feel like someone is simply flipping through radio stations instead of setting a mood. But the synth's breath score is top-notch, emphasizing the terror expertly. Still, real-world controversies, such as the rumored relationship between Olivia Wilde and Harry Styles, which caused the breakup of their marriages, prevailed in scenes where the two of them were together, or when Pugh and Styles were intimate in the scene. To add insult to injury, Florence Pugh and Olivia Wilde were apparently at odds for the entire film shoot, again distracting me to watch their scenes together with a shrewder eye. And then who can forget the odd interaction at the premiere when Harry Styles spits into the crotch of Chris Pine? What the hell was that all about? While it's unfair to judge a film by what happens off camera, with so much controversy swirling around Don't Worry, Darling, it's hard not to be distracted by these things while watching. And don't get me started with my annoyance with the lack of a comma in the title. It drives my OCD off a cliff. So while everyone seems to be pretty professional on camera and downright stellar in the acting department, Don't Worry, Darling has a lot going against it. The patchwork story and loud preaching of themes that would have been much better whispered takes away from its effectiveness. Still, I'll watch anything Pugh is in. I can't say I was bored with the ramped-up tension and nightmarish imagery of Don't Worry, Darling, but there's a lot that I found I was all too familiar with.
You're doomed to live the life you're meant to be, stuck inside your reality. You're